Hey guys, Lucas here. I've got another journal to share with you, but I thought I'd give a bit of explanation first. We were still at Donna's, helping her make sure the goblins got settled in and everything. Given what they had been through, we were, trying to help socialize them. We did have some downtime each night, however, and one evening, while I was just relaxing, Mia rushed into the room and practically threw an old book down on the table in front of me.
Lucas, you have to read this.
What? Is that one of your grandfather's journals?
Yeah, here, just read it.
Mia sat impatiently as I read through the entries. When I was finally done, we talked about what we had learned. Later on, I recorded myself here reading the journal entries like I normally do, but I thought I would put them in first before sharing the rest of our conversation so you would know what we were talking about. And, oh boy, strap in folks, this one is big. Here is another cryptid case file from the journals of Norman Carter. November 18th, 1967. It's been a year and a half since Patty died. I haven't been out in the field since Australia. Haven't journaled in as long either. Told myself I was done. I had to stay home and raise Judy. She's 8 now. Sweet girl. But there's this case, and I can't ignore it any longer. This Mothman. Sightings have been going on for about a year now, down in West Virginia. Started with a couple of grave diggers who saw something weird flying overhead. Then the case got a lot more attention when a couple of teen lovebirds saw the creature around something called the TNT area. I've been keeping up with the case from afar, reading newspaper articles and the like. I said I wouldn't get personally involved, but I have to do something. Sightings just haven't stopped. If anything, they're increasing in frequency. And from the sound of it, it's getting more aggressive too. I'm leaving tomorrow. Judy is gonna stay with Patty's sister until I'm back. I wish I could tell her the truth of why I have to leave, but she's way too young to learn about all that. November 21st. Made it to Point Pleasant. I'm beat. I'll start talking to witnesses in the morning. Given the rise in sightings, they shouldn't be too hard to find. November 22nd. Interviewed a few people today. Everyone who claims to have seen it describes the same thing. A dark, human-sized creature with bright red eyes and wings. Makes this horrible screeching sound, then shoots straight up into the air and flies away. Something's been bugging me though, and I wasn't able to put my finger on it until now. The reports are all virtually identical. No one's had trouble describing it to me or remembering what happened. It's like the fog hasn't affected these people at all. But there's no way this thing isn't a monster. So, what the hell's going on here? November 24th. Turns out, I am not the only one in town. I crossed paths with Desmond today. How about that? I ran into him totally by accident, too. He was talking to some folks in town, and I was walking down the street nearby. But I recognized the voice, and when I turned back and saw the black suit, I knew it. It was Desmond, all right. He is apparently going by the name Indrid Cold right now. Weird, but Desmond did always have a taste for theatrics. So, OS is looking for Mothman too. But that's no surprise. Desmond's been in town almost since the sighting started, so we talked details over lunch, and he even shared a few leads with me. Before we parted, I asked him how OS had been doing since I left. Seems not much has changed, but that hasn't deterred him. He's so idealistic. Still thinks he can make the group into something better. And I still think that he's wasting his time. On the bright side, though, he said he's been able to keep them off my trail, and I do appreciate that. December 4th. I almost had it today. I've been keeping in touch with Desmond since we crossed paths, and we went out today on a good tip. Not good enough, though. We just barely missed it. I could even see the speck of black in the sky as it flew away. This is starting to get real frustrating. December 10th. Sightings are still coming in, but we haven't had any more luck yet. I've even tried using my sixth sense, but nothing. The whole town is tense. Something bad is coming. I can feel it on the air. December 16th. 46. 46 people are dead. The Silver Bridge collapsed last night. Desmond says the Mothman was actually there. I'm done playing games. I have to find it before any more people are hurt. December 17th. I finally tracked it down. It took me all night, but I found it, just before dawn. It was sitting, alone, in the woods, making those horrible screeching sounds. Even hearing other people describe it doesn't quite prepare you for hearing it in person. It was shrill and painful, almost like an electric shock. And then things got weird. I hadn't been able to find the creature with my sixth sense, but now that it was in front of me, hearing those screeches, I could understand them. I finally realized, all this time, it had been speaking, trying to communicate. And my sixth sense was somehow translating it for me. The creature was grieving, cursing itself. I didn't know if it would understand me, but I stepped closer and asked what was wrong. The Mothman abruptly froze. Not only had it not noticed me up until that point, but I got the distinct impression that this was the first time anyone had been able to understand what it was saying. I asked again what was wrong, and that's when he began telling me his story. His true name, I'm not even going to try writing it down. It was unpronounceable. Point is, he was an intelligent being. The Mothman, he said he was from space. Well, another planet, crazy as that sounds. He had been traveling in a ship, but there was some kind of accident, and it caused him to crash to Earth. The crash apparently left him with visions of some impending catastrophe. He tried to explain how it happened, something to do with particles that were released in the crash, tachyons or something, interacting with his DNA in some 1 in a million way. It sort of tethered his consciousness to the future or something. I couldn't really understand it all. The science was way ahead of anything I'd ever heard of. Anyway, once the Mothman realized what was happening, he started trying to warn people, but obviously no one could understand his language, that terrible screeching, and finally, despite his best efforts, the catastrophe came to pass, the collapse of the Silver Bridge. The Mothman had failed to save anyone, and in his mind, all those deaths were on his hands. Honestly, at that point, my mind was reeling. Not only had I found an honest-to-God space alien, but I was actually talking to it. Unfortunately, that's when Desmond found us. He had been following me all night, it turns out. I should have noticed, but I had been too focused on finding the Mothman. So I got sloppy, careless. Desmond stepped out from the trees, gun in hand. I warned the Mothman to leave. I warned him that OS wanted him dead, and even if Desmond didn't finish the job, more agents would come looking for him. Then there was a blur of movement, too fast to see. Desmond had been knocked to the ground, and the Mothman now held his gun. He said he was well aware that Desmond was going to show up. He then asked me, motioning to the gun, if this was the device they would use to kill him. I said yes. Then he turned the barrel on himself and pulled the trigger. Make that 47 dead now. I was upset with Desmond for tailing me, but he'd been in town for a year now. Sure couldn't go back to OS empty-handed. That's just the way they do business. And he can't change that. Holy shit. Mothman! Mothman's an alien!
There's no solid proof of that.
Are you kidding me?
Lucas, you're missing the point. All this time, we thought OS was a person. Someone's initials. Someone who knew about cryptids that my grandfather had a falling out with.
Oh my god, you're right. Black suit, killing monsters.
Remind you of anyone?
Ordo Sancti Georgi.
Ordo Sancti for short. OS. My grandfather was a part of the Ordo Sancti.
Okay, I'm recording this a little bit later. I realized that I never talked about Norman's sketch of the Mothman. And it is truly alien. Its body is roughly the shape of a human. Well, a person without a head. Bipedal, 2 large eyes near the top of the chest, no visible mouth, but there are some weird little slits where a mouth should be, or at least where you would expect one, under the eyes. There are 2 wings protruding from the side of the chest, roughly where you would expect arms to be, but then there's a much smaller pair of arms below that, ending in little, tentacles. This is just... I still can't get over it. A real, honest-to-God alien. This is insane. Bye for now, I guess.
The Cryptid Cases has been a production of Little Giant Monsters.
You can follow us by searching Little Giant Monsters on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to keep up to date with everything we're working on. We even post a sketch of the latest cryptid every Monday after a new episode.
You can also visit our website, littlegiantmonsters.com, to see all of our content in one place.
While you're there, want our designs on stickers, t-shirts, coffee mugs, and more? We now have merch. Just look for the merchandise link on our website.
If you really like what we're doing and want to see us do more, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Rewards include behind-the-scenes content, bonus material, and more. Search Little Giant Monsters on Patreon or find a link on our website.
You can also help us by leaving a rating and review on iTunes. Not only does each review warm our cold, cynical hearts, but it helps us move up the charts and bring the show to a wider audience.
Your continued support means so much to us. Thanks for listening and see you again soon.